Hi, it's Bram here from Whitianga Comics and Collectables on our first podcast for 2000 AD is number 1. So we're going to start with that today. So thanks for listening and I hope you enjoy. So with me today we've got Brian and Vaughan and obviously myself, Bram, and we're going to talk about 2000 AD and mainly Dredd. I'm going to keep it pretty specific because 2000 AD universe is so big and so many characters you couldn't really talk about it in one podcast. So we're going to probably stick mainly to Dredd today. I know how I got into 2000 AD, like as a young fella, but I didn't really start until the 300s, Prog 300s. And the main thing I really collected it for was Road Trooper, because I loved war movies, on a Sunday you'd see the war movies like Big Red One and stuff like that. So you would always, I'd go back to that. War stories was one I liked. I loved war stories. I wasn't really into police or lawmen or detectives or cowboys, but yeah, war was always the thing that got me in there. So I don't know, how did you get onto it, Brian? Well, did you start collecting from early or just started reading later on in life? Or
I started at Prog 1.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was actually advertised on TV. So back in those days, you would get an ad for the first issue of a British comic on TV. It was a random, locally made ad.
Were you in New Zealand?
I was in New Zealand, yep. And so
they had the ad in New Zealand?
There was an ad on TV for it. I think you might have posted it, or somebody's
posted
it. On Facebook. Yeah, and so we had that here, and it was like, Mum, can I have that? And so I got issue 1, and I think I had the first couple. Yeah. So I had the stickers, the Bionic, Biotronic. I think they called them stickers. Biotronic stickers from issue number 2. Exactly, and I had
because
those, and you put them on, they didn't last.
Because by the way, that ad, Brian, when you see it, you don't even know that's about 2000 AD until about the end where they just show the cover and you're like, what the hell was that ad about?
Until pretty much the end. I think it's all sort of really focused on Dan Dare and all that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I got at least the first 2. Yeah. And then for whatever reason, I just never kept going. And
so you just went Prog 1, Prog 2?
Prog 1, Prog 2, and then I stopped.
Yeah.
That'd have been, 7. God, that's a long time ago. And so, because the story is all that Dredd wasn't the one that they expected to take off. And even when I read it, and all the guys that I went to school with, and they were reading it too, and it was all Mach 1, because the Bionic Man, $6 Million Man was on TV, and we're all really keen on that.
Machine Acu something computer
activated by compupuncture hyperpower.
That's it. That's it.
I can't remember phone numbers, but I can remember that.
That's good.
Better remember my phone number. And so I just sort of drifted away from that. And then when Star-Lord came out, and that was advertised on TV again as well, I was like, okay, again, Mum, can I have that one? So I got issue 1, and it was all of it was colour. It was all shiny glossy paper and stuff.
Did you get the badge?
Got the badge, got all that stuff.
Were all the badges different though, eh? They weren't all the same?
They were different. Yeah, different ones. And so, I think even, to be honest, I think they did the free gifts for issue 1, 2 and 3, I think again, it used to be kind of standard, I think, and one of them didn't have it. One of them didn't have one of the free gifts. It just didn't turn up in New Zealand.
Come on, ask you. Prog 1, did you get the Space Spinner?
I did.
Prog 2 was the Biotronic stickers,
which I did get, yes, and I had the Space Spinner.
I wondered if they came with it in New Zealand. I didn't know.
I assumed that it didn't come with it because it would have just been a shipping nightmare.
Stuck to the front. Yep. I had that thing for years. Awesome. And then I gave it away to a mate of mine many moons ago. So I really wish I still had it now that I've got a copy of Prog 1 again. But
man.
Yeah, and so I followed Star-Lord, and then that ran for 22 issues, which is brilliant. You got Strontium Dog and all of that kind of thing.
Robusters.
Loved Robusters. Yeah. And then when they merged, the whole thing of we're merging together, i.e. one wasn't selling, I just picked it up and kept going, and that was number 86, and then from there it was... the day the Lord died and stuff, and that was me. I was a fan.
So 86 is cut in like just after Cursed Earth starts or something, near the band issues. That's quite close to band issues.
At the end of, so 85 I think was when the Cursed Earth ends.
Yeah.
And then the next one was Dredd's back in the city. I think it was maybe a couple of
stories. The day the Lord died.
And then it's in the day the Lord died, and he gets sent to Titan and all of that stuff. And then it just picked up, and I was a 2000 AD fan from there. So that was me.
Yeah. Well, Vaughan, you actually just got given a big hunk from your brothers.
Well, what happened is I was the same as you. I used to read war stories all the time, so Commanders, battles. But I actually started collecting Warlord. And Warlord was a very similar format to 2000 AD, where you have instead of Tharg, it was Flint. I think it was Lord Flint, or it was Warlord, and it had all the different stories, World War II stories, and exactly that weekly anthology.
Yeah.
And at a point, I think I was about 8 years old, I just got sick of war stories. There's only so much you can read, you know, and of the same sorts of stories over and over. And my brother actually suggested getting 2000 AD. So I started a lot later than you. Like, I think it was
early 80s or something.
Yeah, it was sort of mid 80s, and so mid 80s, maybe about. So I never was around. I don't even remember a 2000 AD ad being on TV.
I can't remember at all.
So that was.
I didn't even know there was a Star-Lord ad.
Nah, that's crazy.
Yeah.
And then, so then when I started picking up 2000 AD, I loved it. It was just amazing. And back then, everybody knew someone who had a stack of 2000 ADs in their garage and an old bear crate or something like that. So my brother's friends would have these, and I'd go backwards and actually try to fill up. And I only really got down to the sort of maybe the late 100s.
Okay.
And then from about mid-80s, I was collecting for about maybe 10 years, but then stopped.
Yep.
Yeah. But yeah, it's only just recently, in the last maybe 3 or 4 years, that I've sort of really been trying to pick up a lot of these other collections. I never sort of saw much through the 90s and 2000s until recently, but man, I've missed out on heaps.
Oh yeah, like you've only got me back into it probably the last 2 years, and so I've got a heap of progs now, which is fine, but they're much harder to read because you don't get progs in succession, right? You might get a group in the hundreds, and all of a sudden you got a group from the 200s, so it's bloody hard to read, and that's why I sort of go on collected works, which a lot of people do, because who doesn't want to read the story in its entirety?
Yeah.
But it is good to have the original progs and stuff like that. So how did you are you always attracted to Dredd and storyline, or is that what you read now mainly, or you pretty much read a broad spectrum of it, right? Of 2000 years.
I kind of excuse me. I had a run of all of them. Had a full set basically all the way from, as I say, the Star-Lord merge right down to probably about into the mid 800s.
Yeah,
and that was a point at which I kind of drifted away.
Yeah.
And even
but that's a good slab of collection.
It's a good slab. Yeah, it's kind of around about the time that the magazine was just starting to come in.
Yeah.
And you know, as I say, life gets in the way, and you just go off and do other stuff.
Yeah.
Now I'm back feeling like crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, and even from, as I say, from the Star-Lord merge, it was still more focused on things like Strontium Dog, and Robusters and all that kind of thing, Rogers and Hammerstein and all that. And then it was reading Judge Cal, the Day the Law Died, and as that came out sort of in that long form, and the Clegs turned up, and it was just this crazy bonkers story of all this weird stuff going on.
Well, then you got that
Fergie and the big
giant
smelly,
Fergie, the big
smelly and all of that, and even the fact that the art changed almost from episode to from chapter to chapter kind of thing. We're all just sitting at school reading it and absorbing it, and Dredd became kind of a favourite character at that point, and I became a Dredd fan right at that stage, and everything else, all the stories just kind of morphed and changed around. You get Robo Hunter and all that kind of thing, but Dredd was always the constant. He was the consistent one, even though there wasn't kind of much. Sort of to be alienating, there wasn't much character to the character, if you know what I mean. He was a little bit kind of one note at that point, because that's the way that they wrote everybody.
Oh yeah, well
they all had this one thing. Johnny had this. Johnny Alpha had this thing that was his direction, and Dredd had his. And they didn't really morph it until later on.
Well, and like I'm the same. I always went for Rogue because it was something that's so, to me in my mind, I just liked that this dude's wandering New Earth. Gas masks were like something that I was like, I mean, I'm getting off Dredd a bit here, but the gas masks, it reminded me of like any of you saw in the 80s, like it's the Iranian hostage taken on the plane with the SAS and their gas masks. I was like, whoa, these guys are rad. So I was like, I'm loving that, and I'm seeing these Nort troopers with all these gas masks on, and like all the Southers had sort of the plain visor with the gas mask at the bottom, but the Northers like these guys are bad, and then. And that all blew my mind. But like Vaughn said, we just see so much war stuff all the time. She's like, oh, it's still good, and it's different than actual war, and things are being made
It just opens your eyes to the other things. Like, it got you in, and then you start sort of seeing these other things and just start reading into them. And just go, actually, this is much more interesting than what I first gave credit for.
Absolutely. Well, the thing is too, like when you're
Strontium dog, fuck
that early '80s and '70s for me, well, sort of early '80s mainly, was I had heaps of Commando. And I read Commando, and that is something that is so.
Stacks of Commandos.
But also, by the way, that is something that
easy
is very
to find.
Can be hard to read at times because like I've read so many stories that's so similar because they pump them out. You're like, holy, this is actually good. I like the art more probably than the writing in the end because I'm like, I love the war stuff, but I was like the writing it got too similar for me. Even as a kid, it made it hard for me to focus on it. So. I can tell you the truth. I never read Dredd, even when I had the 2000s.
Okay.
I'd only get it, and I'd just read Road Trooper.
Wow.
And I'd look at the ads in them for stuff like, I don't know why, but it's like, hey, kids want to collect stamps? And you have like a stamp, and I'm like, what the flip is this, man? My dad's got a stamp collection, probably, but I'm definitely not doing that. But I would just be fascinated by stuff in there.
Does anybody collect stamps now? Anyway.
Oh, probably, but like now with the invention of the internet, like you can get whatever you want, right? That makes it easy to collect.
Yep.
But now you look at Dredd, and like you say before, when I read these collected works, you see how much effort's put into even the background of Mega City. Not all artists obviously do that.
No.
And Vaughan did tell me a good one about Ron Smith, and he would do it like a job, right? I need to be paid this much. I'm going to write for this amount of time, and when that page meets that time, that page is done.
Wow. Okay.
Whether it's got detail or not.
Yeah. it's finished.
But it always did. I mean,
his
stuff's good, right? Even then,
it's amazing.
It still has good detail.
Stuff completely.
It still has good detail.
Yeah.
But even the characters are interesting. Like PJ Maybe is quite a crazy one. I've only read that collected work, so I don't know if that's in the progs or mega zines or whatever. But he was interesting. The Judge Death and the Dark Judges. That's the interesting characters. And I don't know a lot, but I'm just repeating what I remember. And so you've got all those sort of characters, and even the petty criminals he only meets in one panel. You're like, this dude's
Well, it's
weak.
funny you say it. The first time I really started enjoying Judge Dredd was when Chopper first came into it, and it was Chopper the Wall Scrawler, and he was starting to. He was a graffiti artist that just went round, and he got into this battle with another Wall Scrawler, and it was such a good story because it was a Judge Dredd story that really didn't have much to do with Judge Dredd in it, and it was just an interesting character to follow. And in the end, he has to. It's actually.
It was a cyborg.
He's fighting against. He's having a competition against another robot, which blows his mind.
Doesn't he scroll? I haven't read it, but doesn't he scroll on that big statue, the statue of Justice or something?
Yeah.
He scrolls on that.
The big statue of the judge. Yeah, just the big chopper symbol.
Yeah,
comes up when the sun rises, it activates the paint or something.
That's right.
And then the chopper logo comes up.
Oh, I'm gonna have to read that now.
We're going back to this now.
Yeah. But it's things like that draw me to Dredd now, and of course I'm an adult, and you're a kid. Certain things you don't notice as a kid, right? You think, detective sort of story, policeman. Oh, nah, I'm not into it. Yeah. But then, now when you're older, you look back at a lot of the stories too, and it's hyper violent. You're like, this is actually really good because it's hyper violent.
Yeah.
Because Vaughn was just showing me a panel the other day of a story that's pretty nonchalant type of story.
It's a new story.
Yeah, but at the end, a kid goes, "Excuse me," and sort of comes up to Dredd and he's going, bam, and elbows this kid in the face, and the panel is insane.
It's actually funny because it's actually one of the latest, one of the last Chopper stories. So it comes back to the to the same character.
Gotcha. Yeah.
But what happens is Judge Dredd just gets so infuriated that he can't find Chopper, and I'll have to check when it is, late 90s or maybe something like that. Yeah. But this little kid just comes up and says, "Excuse me, Judge," and Dredd just elbows him square in the face. And just goes, "Don't ever sneak up on it."
Is child abuse a crime?
And
then just pissed off.
By the way, you can't see the child's face because it's fully impaled on the end of a green elbow guard. It's like, whoa.
So this is the other thing: is Dredd a hero? Is he an anti-hero? Is he like the villain of the piece? He just constantly changes and evolves. It's awesome.
I think that question comes out the longer it goes, because I mean at the beginning, we're all reading it. It's this really cool looking dude, and he's got the uniform and there's the eagle and there's the helmet and all that kind of thing, and we're all looking at the Lawmaster and the Lawgiver and going, I want one of those, and you're making guns out of Lego and you're playing Judge Dredd in the front yard kind of thing.
Yeah.
And it's like there's no... It's not that there's like no characterization or anything like that, but it's just a whole bunch of stories about stuff in Mega City 1.
Yeah.
And these characters like Otto Sump, and there's the Robot Wars and Walter the Wobot and all that kind of thing. And just thinking about it now, there's not even really supporting characters. You got all these judges who come and go.
Oh, yeah.
Until they get to like Hershey and Magruder and Anderson.
Yes.
But beyond that, there's not really a supporting cast. So Judge Giant, and that was a callback
And
to
three
Harlem
females,
Heroes.
all 3 female characters as well. That's interesting.
Yeah.
I hadn't really
exactly.
thought about that.
For its time.
But it's even
for
Judge,
sure.
Judge Giant, right? He's around for a while, and then I noticed he disappeared for, I don't know how many progs it is. It's a really long time.
Yeah.
Like, in prog,
But I think
in
his
prog
son
time.
comes into it as well.
Yeah, and so Judge Giant actually comes back. Oh, yeah, it does, his son does.
Yeah, his son comes in as a cadet, and like I said,
Yeah.
there was a callback to the Harlem Heroes because there was a character in Giant called
and Harlem Heroes called Giant,
Which
because-
was his granddad or something.
Yeah,
wasn't
something
it?
like that, and it kind of links these things together. It's about the only time I think they ever did it that I can
Yeah.
recall anyway.
That's right.
Yeah, and the characters, they just sort of disappear.
Yeah, and like you say, so yeah, supporting character for going on for a few things, and all of a sudden it's he's gone for progs, like because I suppose I'm saying that a lot of guys who wrote Dredd, obviously, and Alan Grant and John Howard and these guys, a lot of them wrote under pseudonyms and stuff like this, but it just shows you that they wanted to develop it, just take this character away and we'll bring this other one in, some interesting, because like Vaughn and I have noticed any time there's a dude with a moustache, he's definitely going to die.
Is it like the red shirt in Star Trek? Is that the point?
Not quite as much, but like
that started in that story we were talking about earlier, Brian. Was it the Judge Child?
Yep.
And one of the crewmen's actually Lopez.
Right. He's got the moustache.
And
he
he's
has
got a
to take
mustache.
this.
And in his diary entries, he's just going, I need to talk to Lopez about his mustache. And he's just giving them such a hard time the whole story. And then in the end, he makes them have they have to find this Oracle Spice.
Yeah.
And he makes Lopez have it.
Yeah.
And knowing full well that it's going to kill him.
Yeah.
And he said, well, you're the most susceptible to it. You're the one who needs to use this Oracle Spice so you can tell us where the Judge Child is.
That's right, yeah.
And he's just going, what? Piss off! This is because I've got a mustache, isn't it? He goes, no, you're just it'll work best on you.
Because even you said when Hershey dies not that long ago, she actually says, I'll forgive you for what you did to Lopez.
Yeah,
right.
They actually do mention it back again.
Wow.
Yeah,
Brilliant.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not up to date with what's happened to Hershey. I did see that there was a story where she dies,
right?
But I think she might have come back. I'm not even sure. I have to find that out.
Okay. Yeah.
I've ruined it for you, haven't I, Brian?
Well, look, that's like 1,000 progs that I can't read now. So thanks very much for that. I appreciate that. I'm stopping here, Brad.
I have to go. I'm getting emotional.
Let's
talk
don't
about
kill Anderson. I'm good.
Yeah.
You keep Anderson.
Now, the other thing I want to talk about is general look. Because you look at him, you're like, there's a lot of fascist memorabilia on him.
Yeah.
Like
For sure.
big giant eagles and the visored helmet.
Yep.
With the almost SS style bloody
The little sort of shiny
lights
bit on
and
it.
Now that you pointed out, that's creepy. Okay.
Yeah. A badge on the centre of his helmet that comes down to gas mask. When he's got that on, they look quite sinister.
Yeah.
I love the amount of pockets he always sort of had on when they was drawn. I mean, in the early prog there, Bonnie.
We're looking at Prog 2 here.
Yeah, so Prog 2, his first appearance, you actually look at him and he's being drawn African American. Like if you're looking from an American standpoint, American City, you have a look at him. He has all the characteristics of an African American.
But that's interesting as well because back then, like Judge Dredd, I always assumed now Judge Dredd to be in the middle of 2000 AD because that's when I first started reading. It was always in the middle. Yeah. But back then, it was kind of...
Yeah, Dan Dare was the flagship story. He's the one that they all assumed was going to kick off.
Judge Giant and Harlem Heroes.
Yep.
And
then Judge Dredd is right at the back here as the first time
he's
he
super lean
too. Number 2.
He's super lean.
Look at him, and that's we're looking at this. He's very lean, huge boots. He's got a pistol mounted in his boot. That must be the most ridiculous place to put a pistol, wouldn't it?
You just lift your leg up, mate, when you want to shoot someone.
It's
like
perfect
cowboy
for
times.
well, this is what it's for. When he's riding his bike, it's just right there.
So every super cop needs a really serious set of knee pads.
Yeah.
Because that's what you want, and elbow pads.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you what.
It's not cumbersome at all.
Even on some of those new super expensive statues, by the way, have you seen how massive the pads are in comparison to like the ankles and stuff? You're like, whoa.
That's on the
careful with it.
Mick
Break.
McMahon statue that you got, Mick McMahon statue.
Yeah, you're based on Mick McMahon,
yeah.
and that's ridiculous. The ankles.
And this is who drew the very first
and he was
Judge Dredd.
It was you,
even though he didn't design it.
But you and I were watching that early footage on YouTube, and the guy was like, "Hey, that's a really awesome Dredd that you draw." And he's like, "I love the perspective." And he goes, "Well, actually, it's by accident because I start drawing at the top, and by the time I get to the bottom, the boots end up massive." And I'm like, "Oh no, what are they going to say about that?"
And then people are starting to like it, so I just go,
stick with it. So I just stuck with it.
That was Mick McMahon. There was an interview on the 10th birthday.
Oh, that it was.
issue, Prog, the 10th birthday edition of the Prog, and they've got quite a lot of interviews, and that was his thing. He just said he just lost all proportion and perspective by the time he got to the boots, but people were loving it, so he just kept on going.
And by the time you get to someone like Ian Gibson drawing him, all the feet are enormous anyway, and it just becomes completely exaggerated. I mean, the look though, that's Iscara though, isn't it? Didn't Iscara do the design? And he was saying about from having lived in Spain and all of that. The political stuff that had gone on, I think he was informed by a lot of that. From what I read in Pat Mill's book, I think.
And I think
John Wagner called it a Spanish pirate or something.
Exactly.
Spanish
an
pirate.
effing Spanish pirate.
That's the one.
But they were saying the early stuff you do read too on Wikipedia, you sometimes can't take that all for solid fact. But they're saying the movie Death Race. I think I haven't seen the movie Death Race, but they're based on the main character of that particular character, like the suit, the black suit, the helmet, and stuff like this. I've never actually watched it, but apparently it was semi-based on that as well.
There was a movie poster.
Who played that? It wasn't Clint Eastwood, was it? It was like I can't remember who it is.
And Death Race 2000 or something, wasn't it?
Yeah, Death Race 2000.
Yeah, I don't remember now. David Carradine.
David Carradine. You actually look at him, right?
He was on the Kung Fu. What did he do?
He did Grasshopper.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
So you look at it. Yeah, it's pretty similar. It's very bondagey, by the way, but
I don't. You know what? It doesn't look that similar. To be honest,
there are chains on the uniform.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah, that's true.
The dirty pervert.
Surely a crime.
But even all those things add up to be like it's a real authoritative figure, though. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
When he turns up in Mega City 1, people know, they see the dude coming out. Even though they're all looking pretty sinister, the people. I don't know. How you'd even do a movie with Mega City 1 actually as a background, even though I looked at that thing, because everybody on it, when you see them drawn, they're super odd. They are pretty radical, very punk,
really weird
very
people.
super punk, anti-establishment people. And then there's like the League of Fatties and all these sorts of things. And
Otto Sump.
Yeah, Otto Sump. It's certainly a pretty authoritative look.
I love the fact that it's kind of he's famous at this point as well. It's almost like he's riding through the streets and everybody knows that it's Judge Dredd. This thing is enormous, and how many judges have they got?
And that first one's got Whitey in it, who does turn up a few other times. But as he develops too, he gets that real. He starts getting you get to the 80s, into the 80s, 90s. He gets pretty muscular. He starts getting big because that's what 90s style was. 90s style was massively muscular, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Because they always used to talk in the progs about, well, would you cast a movie? And people would write in letters, and who was your cast? And they're always talking Clint Eastwood for Dredd, and Paul Newman for this, and for Strontium Dog, and all that kind of thing. And if you were going to do it now, they'd all be going, well, who do you need? Someone enormous.
Obviously someone who's over 300 pounds of solid muscle.
Yeah, someone built like The Rock or whatever it would be, exactly. And so over time it changes. Whereas here, you can put Clint Eastwood in this costume because it's the same build, basically.
Well, you look at...
it's quite thin and looking like he's straight out of the westerns that he used to do. It's very western style. So
exactly. A real wiry.
The man with no name look to him.
This one, man with no face.
So that's why the Carl Urban movie's good though too, because when you look at him, he's quite a proportion. When you see a drawing of Dredd, that makes him convincing.
He's right down the middle, isn't he?
Oh, man.
And the way they
not too thin, not too ridiculous, not too
enough.
American hero kind of styles. He's just.
It's kind of got like a semi-flat jackety, stab-proof vest type thing. I don't think he has chains on that uniform. I don't think he has a chain to his badge.
It's actually sort of a part of the uniform.
And so, but even though they changed that bit, we can talk about the movie because the first Dredd movie is. I didn't think it was terrible because I didn't know enough about Dredd when I saw it. I was like, oh, yeah,
Yeah.
Oh, he's taking his helmet off, no big deal. It's a big deal.
Oh, no,
by the way.
that
It's a deal breaker for a lot of people.
I-
They got furious by
Yeah,
that.
It already broken my heart before I got to that
Horribly
point, but
disappointing.
it was not a good look for that movie to come out.
The fun part of that too was watching it here, and of course we saw it on at the time that it was released worldwide, and so you get to see it. Of course, at that stage, the comics were still 3 months behind. They're still coming on a boat.
Oh, yeah.
So it's like you're getting all these. You're still reading through at that point all the build up.
Yeah,
Everybody,
yeah, yeah.
all the editors of the comic are talking about the fact this is coming, and here's pictures from the movie, and it's all coming. They're all really excited.
There was a problem
And then-
with
and
the
then
actual printed
with the
bloody
printed-
movie.
Yeah, all that
of
stuff on it.
Sylvester
There's like a
Stallone on
photo
it.
cover and all of that, and then
Yeah.
you get to the point where the movie's launched, and it all just kind of okay, that was a movie. Yeah,
Never to be
So
talked about
disappointing. And you
again,
had to live through it twice, and it was just horrible.
This is me. This is me talking way after the movie. But
Yeah.
if you were going to make a movie that terrible, I can't remember. Does it have Maria the landlady on it? Does it have Walter the Wobot?
No, it doesn't have.
Well, if you're making a terrible movie, they need to be in it.
If they
As far
had,
as
it
I'm
wouldn't have been any
concerned.
worse.
Yeah.
It couldn't have been any worse if they put them in there.
Oh, I know. It's like you're already making a really terrible movie. Put Walter the Wobot on. It's like, I hate him. But Maria the landlady, she's a pain in the bum too.
Yeah.
What is
Put her
your
in.
What is your opinion of Walter the Wobot, who is Dredd's
Tell the truth, Brian.
I loved it. Like I say, bear in mind that when I'm reading that, by the time I swung around to that, I'm still like
Okay, well, this,
9 years
this
old.
podcast's finished.
I thought it was loads of fun at 9 years old. I used to love reading the little side Max Normal stories they would put in, like in the.
I didn't mind Max Normal. Max Normal was
okay.
okay. He was
And that
good,
was
little
cool.
sidekick,
Yeah.
and it wasn't in it all the time. But
Yeah.
Walter the Wobot just.
Hey, wait, anytime when you're under 10, you're allowed to like Walter the Wobot.
Yeah,
Because
yeah,
it was the
I can
70s
accept
and it
that.
was robots.
I can
Yeah,
accept that.
yeah.
But the other thing too, I mean, I love
Buck
Metal.
Rogers had one
I
on
love
TV,
Metal
just
Mickey.
saying.
I tweet
Metal Mickey. There
Tweety.
you go. There you go.
Metal Mickey was a favourite of mine. Oh my gosh, a curly-haired robot, ridiculous now.
Yeah.
But I'm like,
Yes.
this is badass. He's living with a family.
That's a health and safety issue straight away. Bloody razor sharp, curly
Yeah.
fucking bits of metal
Yeah,
coming
yeah,
off
I know.
them.
Yeah, one day he'll shed his programming and slaughter them all.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the Overlords come out. Yeah, that. I mean, to me, that movie, but the Urban movie, I can watch over and over. And
I thought it was great. I really enjoyed that. I still do.
It made
Yeah,
up.
I still watch it
It
every now and
really
then,
made
it's
up
great.
for that first movie.
Yeah,
It was-
completely.
well, you had them getting how would you say, particular advice from the writer creator.
Yeah.
Like that's what they didn't do in America, right? When they did that big movie.
Yeah.
He says they said I offered my services, but they wanted me to do it for free, which is they wouldn't have done it on any other movie, by the way.
Yeah.
So he was like, and I was like, no, I'll do it, but I'm not doing it for nothing, which is fair enough. You've created something that's become as popular in America as in England
Completely.
or
Yeah.
Britain, and these other places like New Zealand and everything. You owe it to the guy to pay him and say, hey, yep, this is what I want the view to look like. You do it like this, but this is what I think it should be.
Yeah.
Don't go, no, we don't want your help, and then
can't just
potentially
discard
we've
it.
talked about this, but you get, at the end of the movie, put his name at the very end when everyone's gone home.
And we're obviously talking about John Wagner,
Yeah.
who wrote and invented, pretty much wrote
Yeah.
it,
Yeah,
and
Pat
designed the
Mills had the
character.
idea and
John
helped
Wayne, Pat Mills.
Yeah.
Pat Mills, and of course Carlos Esquera,
Yep.
Yep.
and I suppose Mick McMahon as well.
Yeah,
a
so
little
from,
bit.
from that early stuff, exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, and this is a second-hand story, but a mate of mine, when he was living up in Holland, he went across to Con in the UK, and John Wagner was there.
Yeah.
And so he took a DVD copy of the movie, the new movie, the Carlo Bunn movie.
Oh, okay. I was
And,
gonna say-
no, hell no, not the Stallone.
On a USB stick.
Because you'd never pay for it. So he bought a copy of the Blu-ray, I think it was, for the Carlo Bunn Dredd, and he took it up to the table, a little bit nervously, to go, "It's okay, can I get you to sign this?" And asked him, "What did you think of the movie?" John Wagner apparently thought it was great.
Oh, excellent.
And he actually got the endorsement for it to say,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm happy to sign that. I really liked it.
Yeah.
Nice.
My mate was very relieved.
Yeah.
But it's always also nice to hear that at the same time, you know.
Absolutely.
And,
From
you
the
would, and you would
creator.
know from the look in his eye, you'd know if he thought it was a pile of...
Oh yeah. And I don't think he would actually tell you that it was. If he didn't believe it, he would.
Doesn't seem like the kind of guy who would sell his soul for that. No.
No.
So, which I thought
Not
was
at
a
all.
pretty cool endorsement for that too.
No, that's amazing. That's really cool.
Yeah.
And that's one thing that we lack a lot in New Zealand is having the opportunity to meet these creators.
Completely. Yeah.
Which is me and Bram went down to Christchurch 3 years ago.
2017. So
We travelled all the way down there because
Colin Wilson.
Colin Wilson was going to be there, and
Yeah.
it's very rare for us to be able to meet a creator from 2000 AD.
Absolutely.
Oh,
Which is
I never
I
had.
don't know if any of the creators been to New Zealand though. a writer, or I mean, I don't know.
Actually, no, to tell
Possibly.
John Higgins came here.
Yeah.
John Higgins was here. He did a signing.
Bloody hell.
At Heroes for Sale a good few years back now, and it was largely around a book of his that he'd done called Razorjack.
Right.
Which is really cool. He's a really nice guy.
Yeah.
And he was signing away and talking away. And of course he'd done the colouring on The Killing Joke, original colouring and all of that kind of thing. But he was, of course, a 2000 AD.
John Higgins
artist
is
as well.
amazing, yeah.
He was a terrific guy. Yeah, great artist.
Because I'll tell you what, it's common there, because Colin Wilson was the most amazing guy to talk to.
Yeah.
I don't think people really knew who he was. I think only our group that went to see him actually knew. There's 5 of us.
Yeah, which is a real shame.
And
He's not more well known.
oh, sorry, there's 4 of us. And we all went, and he was just like, oh, have we got any stuff with you? And he's like, I've got these prints, I don't know if you'd be interested. And an amazing Dredd, an amazing Rogue. I think he did a Rocketeer.
Did me a little Dredd sketch. He did Bram a little Rogue sketch.
Yeah.
Oh, it was awesome.
Rogue.
Man.
Sold.
Oh, yeah, and it was just like super personalised. And he was happy to talk away all flipping day.
He was surprised. He was a bit worried no one would come to see him.
Wow.
Yeah, he was just like
That'd be awful, wouldn't it?
he was just like when we went there was no one there though. He was just sitting there but he was telling stories about Dave Gibbons and talking about Brian Boland and all sorts of
Mick
things.
McMahon. He
Yeah,
was
Mick McMahon,
told us a few stories about Mick McMahon and he said it was an awesome time because he was working early 80s to mid 80s. Would that be the sort of time?
Yeah,
Yeah.
as I remember him. Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember that he did a couple of stories in Dredd, and I can't remember 100% what they are. I've seen some original artwork though that he did through the guy, a guy Dan I bought artwork from.
Colin Wilson.
He did Dredd, and he had a piece of Colin Wilson's Dredd artwork.
Danish.
Yeah, Danish had it. Yeah.
Okay.
But he doesn't anymore, and I feel a little bit silly now that I didn't buy it.
Hindsight.
So yeah, hindsight. But like, hey, excellent to meet its creators, and I just wish more would come here. You know, and I think it would have to be done, probably not in an Armageddon or something like we have in New Zealand, but definitely done in a shop, something like that. That would be the way to do it.
I think yes.
Like say for Heroes for Sale or wherever it was.
Yeah.
That's a good place to stage, or Arkham Comics, or just somewhere like that central to Auckland where there's a lot of population, and you could have that one-on-one interaction with
that
them.
kind of that audience in,
Yeah.
absolutely, and there'd definitely be an audience for it. I'd be lining up.
Yeah, I mean, even, man, I would
Incredible,
absolutely
yeah.
be. Yeah. It doesn't even matter who it was to me, quite frankly.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the amazing thing is how many different artists there have been to doing Judge Dredd.
On character.
I wonder what the count is. I wonder how many there are.
That would be incredible to know, wouldn't it?
There's long stories like Cursed Earth and Day the Law Died and even Judge Child. There wasn't like a single artist through all of them.
Yeah.
You know, you get
multiple artists through the whole
chapters
story.
by one artist and then it would change to someone else. I always wondered whether or not they actually got any reference or it was they just got the script and they just drew it all.
Well, Judge Dredd Oz, they had 2 artists running at the same simultaneously, doing 2 different stories, but showing them at the same time, overlapping and crossing them over.
Yeah, the count by now, I was going to say body count, but the count by now of artists on Dredd at the time must be enormous.
They'd be both numerous, by the way.
Yeah, exactly. Imagine the body count would
You
be
have a favourite artist,
thousands.
Brian?
Oh, crikey. Pick amongst your children. Boland when I was younger, because I always really liked clean art when I was younger.
Well,
I didn't really appreciate well enough the different styles, like even the McMahon type art.
Yeah.
But if you're going to put a gun to my head, Lawgiver it would be Escara, I think.
Yeah,
it would have to be. It's just iconic.
Yeah.
For me, it's just the best Dredd artists, but there's so many great ones.
Yeah,
I always really liked Boland though.
I'm boring. I'm the same. I love Boland. I do like really clean artwork. I don't like anything to. That's not true because that Arthur Ranson stuff we talked about other time. I love that scribbly. And Dan actually had a thing on Instagram and he showed that one where he meets the second hit he does when he's in the pub and he meets that block with one eye missing or one he's blind.
Yep.
And that street art they had with a foggy air and rain, and I'm like, that's insanely good. But for Dredd, definitely Boland. I just like the clean lines. I like everything to kind of be not perfect, but along those lines.
Boland's Judge Death.
Yeah,
that's the one that really struck me when that first came out. It was like, wow,
that was good.
Really
I was actually going to
character.
say I don't really like Boland's stuff, the early stuff. The covers I thought were quite bland looking, whereas I loved Kevin O'Neill and Square, obviously a Square. And then later on, John Hicklington, doing stuff that just looked so morbidly grotesque. And which is the amazing thing about 2080 and Judge Dredd in particular is how many styles he can be drawn in and still be Dredd, which I love. Yeah,
You take a Nemesis and you have to have someone who's really kind of out there. You've got to go a Kev O'Neill or a Brian Torbett or someone like that. Whereas, with Dredd, you can just pretty much everybody's got their own take on him, and none of them are wrong.
And I've never really seen one I haven't, which I've massively disliked. I haven't really come across any.
Yeah,
I'm sure if I really look,
if you really look, you probably find. Well, I can't think of what springs to mind.
I'll tell you what I've noticed is in the only thing I don't like is the modernisation. Some of the real the progs just coming out now. I haven't seen a lot of them, but a lot of stuff I've got over 1,000. Mm-hmm. You start to look into them and you start to see a real generic art type. Because I don't know whether it's because of computers. They would have come in those progs probably in the late 1800s, 1900s. They started. In the progs.
Progs.
Steampunk.
But it's that. I don't know. Everything like Brian Bolling says, he does a lot of perfect sort of drawing. It's very clean. Mm-hmm. I don't know. It just starts to a lot of the figures. They get bulky. They get quite muscular, and they start to round out a lot of their. And I don't know whether it's because it's done on computer or something like this, but certainly when you see original artwork, and I'm lucky enough to have a couple of pieces. You see the drawing, and it's not quite perfect, and sometimes that's nice as well. To see someone's hashed a little bit of it, and you think, it's a proper artwork. It's not computer, and that's sometimes to me is
drawn by hand. Yeah.
Sometimes to me it's nicer. Like I've just the perfect imperfect type scenario. I don't know.
Yeah, exactly.
But that look, the look of Dredd is probably more important to a lot of people too. Is everyone has their opinion on the way you should look, but he's never boring when you see a picture of him. For me. Whether they've got rid of pockets on his arms or someone's put them back on, or they've put more pockets on his leg or taken the holster off, or guys who's a guy who drew Tood Law Givers?
Ron Smith.
So Ron Smith, a guy just goes, I'm going to have him doing Tood Law Givers now, and he's like totally going,
he's a gunfighter.
Going to Kimbo type styles.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Those things are the things for me when you look at it now. Obviously, as a younger, I didn't read it, but now I look at it and I go. Sometimes you read the story, and then you might just go back and look over the page, look at the artwork, and go, this is. It's pretty cool, there's a lot of stunning stuff, and even the backgrounds can be quite cool. They look dingy, they look dangerous, they look dark, and sort of getting off subject a bit, but that's what interests me about Dredd too, is I've never been to New York, but you imagine it's like a really massive New York in my mind, with not necessarily the fire hydrants and all that sort of stuff, but just the dark dingy streets, the undesirables that wander the streets out there causing crime, and they're super violent too, because Dredd's super violent, but a lot of the people he fights are super violent.
Yeah, that's all in response, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
And, just I always imagine it being just noise. Yeah, because there's the highways that are just running all the time. Yeah. People who never stop. Yeah. All that kind of thing. You always just figured there was this massive amount of noise in there. It would be like New York, with New York built on top of it, and again and again, and just this.
What's that story with the prison? It's in the middle of the motorway. Was it Satan's Island? Not Satan's Island.
That's quite an early one, wasn't it?
It's the first one, I think.
Yeah, I think it's right here.
It's in the two.
That's it right here, isn't it?
Devil's Island. There we go.
Devil's Island. Okay. Yeah. So things like that.
Back page of Prog too.
These guys just all standing on one big open space.
It's completely exposed to the elements, by the way.
Yeah. I'm just going to leave you here.
Where the hell do they sleep?
Yeah.
All the ground. They're criminals, mate.
Yeah.
Oh, Christ.
Don't overthink comics in 1977.
Yeah, well, check out the spaceship right there. It doesn't make any sense either. There's no wings. It's not even jet propelled.
Devil's Island, one-way special.
What's it held up by? The righteousness of the law.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Look at this. They actually they fly through over the bloody thing and just chuck him out. See you later.
Yeah. No,
that's brilliant.
None of this legal stuff. You just chuck him out and he's done.
Yeah.
Okay, so do you guys have a favourite story? Have you a favourite story that you could read more than one time?
Oh, wow.
It's 40 years, Brandon.
Yeah, I know, but there's a lot of sagas that are like in that. I mean, they run for like.
I want a top 5 or something.
20 progs.
Wow.
I mean, Apocalypse War has to. Well, everyone. No one's going to say.
Brilliant.
Apocalypse War will be in everyone's top 5. Block War to Apocalypse War.
That whole setup was brilliant. They're going from Block
Mania
into the Apocalypse War. I remember that. That was genuinely. Oh wow.
Yeah.
This is where this is going, and it was amazing.
It was such a lead up, and it was a long lead up, and then how long was the story after? For one continuous story over and over.
25, 26 chapters, I think,
So
or something.
nearly
I think.
6 months or
Something like
something.
that.
Yeah.
Half a year's worth.
You got to
of
remember,
stories.
2008 is a weekly story.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's a beast. It's a beast.
That's
Massive long-form
incredible.
story. Yeah.
And I think Apocalypse War was all Carlos Esquerra, wasn't he?
I think so.
I think he
I
did
so.
every single
it's
page.
One
So
of the real
imagine-
ones. I think for mine, it was the one artist through the whole thing. Yeah.
Yeah, that's an incredible job. I don't remember who did Blockmania, whether he was doing that at the same time.
I'm not
or-
sure if he did some, but I do remember the one. I can't remember if it was a cover or the opening panel for it, and that is a Bolland, if I remember correctly, and he puts the block under arrest.
Yes.
He just stands under this block is under arrest, like the whole thing,
Yeah.
because only Dredd would do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, Apocalypse would definitely be in top 5.
Okay, so what about you, Warnie?
I just remembered, and again, you're getting us. I'm only thinking ones that spring to mind because there could be heaps.
Yeah.
Well, I'm lucky I haven't read enough.
Chopper, Song of the Surfer.
Okay, you do like Chopper. You have mentioned that on many occasions.
Song of the Surfer,
After
yeah.
Oz.
Wait, that's not even a Dredd.
When he's in Australia, yeah, it's a standalone, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's
That's not even a Dredd one. Yeah, I think
Oh, regardless, like you said, it's a great story, right?
Dredd adjacent.
Yeah.
because
Exactly.
I always think of Chopper being a Dredd story because that's where he started.
Yeah,
in
yeah.
Dredd.
Yeah.
So actually, let's jump right to the beginning. Chopper.
Robot Wars.
No, Chopper.
Chopper.
First appearance of Chopper and
Yeah.
what was that?
When he's a graffiti artist.
Yeah,
before he did-
Un-American Graffiti.
That's it.
That's what it's called.
That's the one.
Was
Un-American
it a program?
Graffiti.
Or was it a magazine?
It was a very early.
That was 2008.
Yeah, 2000 AD. Un-American Graffiti. It's the first appearance of Marlon Shakespeare,
Shakespeare.
who is Chopper, the War
Yeah.
Scroll.
Yeah. Okay.
And
I haven't
that's-
read anything about Chopper. I know who he is. I know of references to him.
And he's one
I've
of the
never read it.
only sort of Dredd characters that kind of emerged from Dredd and became his own sort of standalone story as well.
for sure.
And because it went from Un-American Graffiti, then Chopper,
Midnight Surfer.
Midnight
Is it
Surfer.
Midnight
Well done,
Surfer?
yeah, Midnight Surfer.
Yep.
And then from Midnight Surfer was Oz.
Yep.
And
Breaks
then
out and goes
Oz,
to Oz. Yep.
Song of the Surfer. And then actually one of the later ones, which was a terrible story. I was surprised John Wagner was the writer of it, because normally he's so good.
Yeah.
But that was the one where that kid gets elbowed in the face, and that was the best
nice.
part of the story.
Right.
Yeah, you said these. It was an unforgettable story, and then I saw that panel. I thought, actually, it's not that bad.
it was a very forgettable story until I read that, and I
One
went,
unforgettable panel.
and then I just photographed that and put it on my phone to show you later on.
Yeah, that's right, yeah. I tell you what, I don't know if you guys would have read it, and I don't know where it falls in the story of Dredd 100%, but the Dead Man Tales.
Oh shit! See,
because-
I would have chosen that actually. If I
Only
thought of it.
because I didn't know, because Vaughan hadn't said anything, that you actually need to see Dredd's face.
Yeah.
It's the first time I think you see his face.
Yeah, and it's all scarred.
And I don't know whether that. So when's Necropolis before or after that? Is it?
It leads into Necropolis.
Because
there's parallel stories running at that point.
Yeah.
Dead Man's running, and there's a parallel story, and you don't.
Because him and
realise that
Magruder
they're
go back,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
He finds Magruder in the Cursed Earth here, doesn't he? And then he goes back to Mega City 1.
Yeah, because he's taken the long walk, but you don't know he's taken the long walk.
No, I didn't know that because I read it as the
Well, no, yeah,
a
because the
TPB.
Dead Man plays out, and we're
Yeah.
reading it as a separate story, and going, well, it's set in the Cursed Earth.
Yeah.
It's fine.
And isn't Dredd also during the same time? Dredd has actually been given Kraken, his clone,
Yeah.
to
Yeah, yeah,
actually do a test on.
So they set that up
Yeah.
all that way through. It's such
So
a-
you
such
don't
a great
realise
piece of
when
planning.
you.
When I read Necropolis, I think that Kraken story is in the beginning of the Necropolis Mega Collection. I'm trying to remember. I'm not sure 100%, but I think that story's intertwined in Necropolis.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's the lead up. That is the lead up to Necropolis. Yeah.
Okay, so the reason I like Dead Man, and that's one part, is I saw his face, but I didn't know that was his face because obviously I'd never read anything around it. I just read that standalone, and so I see this. It starts in that weird little Cursed Earth village where they're kind of like a closed off sort of Amish community, and there's this little kid, and he goes, "Oh, what's his name? Yaris." I can't remember what his name is now.
Yeah, there's something
Yaris
like that,
something.
yeah.
Anyway, he goes off and he's hunting around, and he sees this something interesting, and then also this wiry stranger comes out from the darkness and protects him from something. Yeah, kind of like real Clint Eastwood like, and he saves this kid, and then so the kid takes him back to the village, and I found this was really weird. By the way, I found like, why does this weird little kid take this grown man back to the village? Clearly, the grown man shouldn't be going with him. So I'm like, I didn't know it's Dredd, obviously, and then all these bad things start happening. They're like, oh, there's bad juju around this guy, you know, we'll get him out of here.
Yep.
So they send the boy to help him get back out, and he goes through the weird forest with all the Pro-Magnon men. I can't remember what they're called, not trogs, what are they called, like, I can't remember what they call those Pro-Magnon men that live in the forest. They attack them. They're like Neanderthals.
Troggy, something along
something that's very close.
I think you brought back.
Yeah, so I just love that whole storyline. He goes through that and he gets to this old west village, and they go back across that. They go back across the river where he actually gets burned in the beginning. That's how he gets scarred, and then he finds his badge, and you're like,
Dead man has no idea who he is. And
and he finds his badge, and it's like, I can't remember if the kid remembers not, but that's when nausea and phobia catch up with him.
Yep.
And
sisters are there.
The kids, I sort of laugh about it. Vaughn's like, that's actually pretty serious. The kid has his eyes taken out by phobia or nausea, I can't remember which one. And he claws his eyes out, and I was like, oh, that's not so good. And then so...
Yeah, I shouldn't have to tell you not to laugh at that.
Yeah, but I don't know, I just... Because...
Gouged eyes bad.
You know what, if I read that as a kid, I would have just glazed over that. Oh, your kid's eyes are out.
I think we
next
did.
bit.
Breeze
over.
Boring.
I think I laughed more in the fact that it was pretty shocking, like, to read it go, oh my god, that kid's eyes have gone. So anyway, and he meets up with Magruder, and crazy on Magruder's end, he riddles him a few questions, and Dredd actually gets it right, but he tries to pretend he didn't get it right, and then Magruder, it's the first time I'd actually experienced reading with Magruder, and and crazy is all buggery, and then they go back to Mega City 1. But that to me was like a really good, complete story, and I can imagine that would have been good. It's in Prague, so I've seen the cover of the Prague. And it would be if I'd read that, I think I would have gone, actually, this story of Dredd is freaking awesome.
This is really cool.
You know?
Well, the beauty of reading that live, though, is to say it's because you still have the Dredd story running through the issues.
Yeah.
Excuse me. And then you're reading through the Dead Man. And no spoilers at that point. I fully remember getting to the end of it and the reveal of it being Dredd, just being blown away.
Yeah.
Had not picked it at all that it was Dredd. Probably everybody else who read it understood that it was him.
No, I think from what I've heard, it was a real surprise.
A proper reveal.
I wasn't reading 2000 AD at the time, so I've gone back and sort of done it. So I've sort of patched it in places a little bit.
Yep.
But that's where those mega collections are so good.
Yeah, the brilliant. You read them
really
all
good.
self-contained.
2000 AD mega collection.
We never read them that way. I mean, it wouldn't be a case of saying, I'm just going to save this up for however many issues and then read them all in one go.
10
weeks.
Get
home from school, the prog would be there, Mum would picked it up and it'd be like, okay, I'm just powering through this thing.
Exactly.
I can only imagine.
But then you'd read it again all the way through the week, you know? And that's why I remember them so well, is because I didn't just read it and then move on to the next thing. No. I had 1 week and I'd read it every single day.
And I was going to ask you guys if you did the same thing. I just used to like hoof through it and just like really just absorb the whole thing, and then I'd go right back to the cover, start again.
Yeah, I'm going to be honest. This is going to sound crazy, but I didn't have it on a weekly basis. I used to get Wink, and
that's the one.
And it was flipping awesome, by the way, and I miss it. But I'd only get them every so often. I'd see maybe if I saw Rogue on the cover, I'd get it. That was it. I'd like, God damn, I have to read that. I'd get the Rogue cover. And then it was on a few, I think, in the late 200s, 300s. Even that, what's that iconic one with him and like fire behind it? It's like War is Hell, the one you were talking about. We talked about before. It says War is Hell on the cover, I think. I can't remember now. But I actually had that one.
Oh, the Rogue
Trooper. And so I'd get it.
That's
so
right.
I wasn't like you guys. I never read
burning itself to death.
I never read Week, but I tell you what, that would be so frustrating if you were into Dredd and you missed an issue and you'd be like, oh my god, it drives me insane.
What happened?
Yeah. How am I going to get another one? I can imagine it. It'd be a beast. If you're a kid, it'd be a beast if you were every week.
Yeah.
I remember quite fondly, Vaughan told me a story where he hadn't gone to pick it up for about 10 weeks. His mum went to pick it up and flipped out because it was so expensive.
Yeah. And I think they'd just gone up to $1, and so $10 and she shit her pants.
Setting us to ruin, bankrupt the family.
Yeah, oh god.
What's the, I'm going to make myself feel real old now, what's the cover price on
8p, is
issue
it?
2, New Zealand, 30 cents.
Holy.
30
Shut the front door, mate.
8p, 17 groats on Mercury.
Now, does it have a Malaysian price on that?
It does. Malaysia.
Because I heard them talking on a podcast saying it wasn't. Is it ringgit?
$1.99. It's a dollar. It's $1. It's a dollar sign at any rate. But 30 cents in Australia, 30 cents in Rhodesia, which then timestamps.
It does say $1.
Yeah.
It was 30 cents in Australia as well.
But so they've always had that pricing on there.
Yeah.
And I think
Right back to them.
it always surprised us that Malaysia was on there.
Oh
Right?
yeah, and it was, we heard it on a podcast today. They were saying, I can't believe that have a pricing from Malaysia, but I can't remember. I think there's a large population, not a large population, but there was a population of English living there. Like when you get Dutch in Indonesia or
Yeah,
something
that
like
makes
this,
sense, I
right?
guess, yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's the only reason I can think of it.
Yeah.
So maybe that's why Rhodesia's on the front of this too, which
Exactly.
isn't even a country
Right.
that exists anymore.
Yeah,
It's
that's right.
Not,
Yeah.
it's not
Yeah.
called
Yeah.
the same thing anymore.
No, it's gone, yeah.
Yeah, it's 30 cents. No,
We
gone
should
to $1 by
also
that
we
point.
should also talk about what sort of paper this 2000 AD is.
Yeah.
It is. You know what? It's for what it is. It's actually stood the test of time.
We've
That
We've
piece
got
of copy-
we've
The
got
copy you've got
from
there holds
we
up
have
that
got
one.
a number 2 here, number 2,
hilarious.
and which is an absolutely brilliant nick.
It's
Really,
an amazing
it's got-
shape, given how old
it's
it is.
pretty
Yeah.
good considering this is newspaper. It's absolute bog
It is, yeah.
paper.
It-
eh?
it is
It's
pretty
terrible.
much, yeah.
It's terrible stuff.
You know the best
And-
It's
thing-
not designed to be kept for 40,
And-
40
and-
plus years, guys.
And to be
Yeah.
honest, it really wasn't a collectible thing.
No.
People weren't collecting these to keep.
No.
They were reading them
Hell no.
weekly.
Yeah.
And quite often this
Reading,
stuff
pass
was...
them around.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you would go to
everybody
friends.
read them.
Like I say, I picked up heaps. Beer box crates just would be... These would be stacked in there in people's garages and you just pick them up. They were never of any value, really, were they?
No, they are now.
I-
Because everybody's
I-
figured out there's a market. And
Do you know the best thing with these, O'Brien and Vaughan? That when you're selling or collecting these, you don't have to worry about spine crinks or anything
No.
because it's
No one ever
so
grades-
soft.
no one ever grades
You
them.
can just about fold it in half in your pocket, take it home, open it back up, and there's not a mark on it.
No. The only thing we're ever worried about as
Yeah.
collectors is someone taking the games out, or they cut the posters
Yeah,
out,
cut the
or
flesh card game
have
out
you
of the
cut
back.
the flesh card
Oh.
game out. And,
Yeah.
There's more copies of... That I've
By the way,
always
have you seen
seen.
that? Star War.
Dan
I
Dare
don't
fights
want
the
to say
Thanos
too much. A little bit plagiarism. It's kind of written nearly exactly the
Just a
same.
little bit.
There was always somebody's name written at the top of
Yes.
these things.
Yeah, there was
Quite
always.
often, more often than not.
Subscriptions, eh?
Subscription copy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You give them the
Written
bookshop and put
straight
them
on
away.
the front. Yeah.
Yeah. Mine all had my name on them. That was written on the top. So.
You just gone, and that's the thing is that I don't know about you, but we didn't have a comic shop anywhere near us.
No.
It was always from the local stationers, and,
Yeah,
and, they, and
completely.
they just
Local
ordered them.
bookshop or
in.
the dairy. The dairy.
Yeah, the
come in on a
dairy.
Friday morning and get one on the way to school.
Exactly.
Sometimes pick up my own ones. So, yeah.
And we didn't get a lot of things in there. We had Warlord 2000 AD. There wasn't like Spider-Man and a bunch of American kind of things. It was mostly this kind of...
They were always hit and miss though, because I collected American comics as well. I kind
Yeah.
of came to this from superhero comics. You know, watching Batman
Yeah.
on TV and
You
stuff.
started-
As a repeat, I'd like to point out, Adam West Batman. And so I started off with that, and then it was all kind of to get into science fiction and into robots and things. It was 2000 AD and Star-Lord and all of that.
Yeah.
Never missed an issue of 2000 AD, but the American ones were always hit and miss. It's like every
Right.
new comics would come in,
Yeah.
and it would be, if you were lucky, you got to run a Spider-Man
Yeah.
or of X-Men or Batman or Superman or whatever.
And it's already
They-
a monthly comic.
It was a monthly
And-
comic, exactly, but the weekly ones, they always came in.
Yeah,
You know, you'd go to different bookshops. So we'd go stay with my grandparents, big pardon, up in Whangarei, and the one across the road, you might get a Valiant or
Yeah.
Action and stuff like that, but it was not always the same ones at every bookshop. It was just whatever they decided they were going to get in.
Yeah.
I was lucky that the local one had 2000 AD.
Well, off subject a little bit, but like, you know what? If you wanted to go into 2000 AD, having progs isn't also actually that necessary, because Eagle and Quality Comics
Mhm.
brought out the certain collections or certain stories in it.
Yeah.
So if
Yeah, but
people's
those
introduction into Dread's not always the same, eh? Like,
Yeah, well, that
some
could
people-
have dropped you right into the Judge tile, I think, when Eagle did those.
Yeah.
The American Eagle Comics ones.
Yeah.
That was just, there was no...
printed in colour. So
Printed in colour.
A lot of
but it
guys
was
wouldn't.
like-
I mean, you get one page of Dread in colour, right, in the middle.
Yeah, yeah.
So a lot of people wouldn't have seen them in colour, but the Eagle had done it in colour. So you're like, holy.
Because
this
they did a
is-
whole Robo Hunter
Yeah.
run. I think they might have done some Rogues, I think.
Yeah. Sam
Yeah,
Slade,
it was a weird one to start with because
Um,
it was a long
Stainless
story.
Steel Rats even been done in it.
It's like 150 progs in though.
Yeah.
Of Dread
Oh,
stories.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
like
yeah.
no background. They just drop you in. It's like
Yeah,
this
yeah.
guy's Judge Dredd.
This guy's
Just child.
yeah.
Yeah.
He's straight in, by the
Totally.
way, he's already kicking ass from Prog 2. But you drop him straight in, so kind of
You can
the
kind of
introduction's
dip
there.
in anywhere. There's
Oh,
a lot
yeah.
of- particularly in the really early stuff, you could just dip in anywhere.
Let's be honest, I've read jumped into stories and read them like collected works,
Mm-hmm.
and I can just smash through a mega one of the mega collections, no problems if it's a
Yeah.
good story. I'll smash it out in a couple of hours. I'm like, this is good. The Eagle comics and stuff like that, you know, they're a 22 pager like American comics, but it's all Dread. So that sometimes
Yeah.
would have been good because
Yeah.
people are like, I only want to read Dread, right?
Yeah.
I'll just read
Just
that.
give me this.
Yeah, they were probably going to come out monthly though, weren't they? Eagle,
They were
come out
monthly
weekly.
ones, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so
and the same price as other American comics. So
Yeah,
it's a little bit
and so
more
that's the
restricted.
interesting thing, because that's not been done with an American comic. And it's like, oh, they've done this anthology style comic or prog, and then all of a sudden, like say down the track, oh, we're going to release it into a coloured comic in the States at Eagle Comics or wherever. The American comics have never done that. Gone, oh, well, probably a little bit, but they haven't gone, oh, I'll have my standalone story with Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Oh, we'll chuck him into a comic with 7 other characters, 6
Yeah,
other characters.
Yeah, people will buy that. No,
It just wouldn't do it.
Just what's
They were
your
very
cover character?
tunnel vision, but British kids have grown up with like Beano or what you say, Warlord or Warrior or Star Lord or Tornado or something like this, and they've always been used to an anthology comic. So
Yeah,
the introduction to Dredd for everyone's not always the same, eh? Some people have never even read it, and then just watch that horrendous movie and gone, oh, this is insanely good, man. This future Lawman is the man.
And he's Stallone.
Yeah. Well, some younger kids do, like at 2009, they've seen it, and they might have been 10 and seen Dredd, and it's pretty ultra violent, the Carl Urban Dredd. They were like, man, this guy's insanely good.
Yeah.
And that can jump them into it too.
His character, yeah.
Like, he must be.
There's your gateway.
Yeah, what's he based on? Because you've got the internet now, you can search anything you like.
But if you started with that, particularly as a kid, and then you went back and you were reading these early ones, you say Robot Wars, call me Kenneth Rico, when Rico comes back, all that kind of thing. You're looking at going, that's not the same character.
No.
It would be a really difficult thing, I think, to get into at
Oh,
that point.
you're probably right. Yeah, I never thought of it like that, but you're probably right.
I mean, these early ones are for 8-year-olds, right?
Oh, hell yeah.
7 to 8-year-old kids, you know.
Oh, yeah.
And that's the interesting thing about Judge Dredd. It's grown up with me, to be honest. As I've gotten older, the story's gotten older. He's gotten older, and that's an important thing to mention as well.
Yeah.
Every year that's passed, Judge Dredd gets 1 year older. In
Which
the
is
not
amazing.
rebirth,
You
he's not
never
reborn.
do that in American comics.
No,
There'll never
no.
be a case of saying, okay, Spider-Man is now 65.
Only other one
That's
that I know of,
yeah.
DC, John Constantine.
Oh
He's
yeah,
aged as time's gone on, but that's the only one I know of.
Sure, yeah.
I did that
that's
when I was
like-
researching Dredd for like a YouTube video
Sure.
I made.
Yeah.
And that's the only other one, and there's
didn't
no
know
other
that.
instance of that.
Wow.
That's the only other one.
All right.
which is crazy.
But Dredd a year is a year, and there was a story at one point, I think in the 80s or 90s or whatever it was, and there's a way that he kind of becomes rejuvenated.
Yes.
I think it is. I can't remember the story now.
machine or
Yeah,
something.
there was a
isn't
thing
it?
that was like, pointing out the fact that Dredd's hitting, closing on 60, I think, or something at some point,
Yeah,
and they
yeah.
did something in the story where he's kind of they kind of reset him,
And that's probably quite a few years ago.
which is a long way back
Yeah.
now. So even a few more years have passed, and 20 more maybe.
Yeah,
But he,
so
but
it's
he
probably-
would also, I suppose, his longevity of life would come down to what's those. I can't remember what it is. I don't know about Dredd, but the sleep cells he do, like 10-minute sleeps, like for 8 hours.
Yeah.
Well, what the hell?
Yeah.
are sleep pods or whatever they
Something
are.
like that. Yeah. Then,
So-
you're back on the streets. Yeah.
So that, and they kind of explained in
That
a
would
couple
drive
of
me
little bits I read that, doing this actually increases his lifespan because he gets proper REM sleep for the 10 minutes,
Right,
it's
okay.
equivalent to this and blah blah blah.
All right.
Which was an important thing to have in a comic like this, because a lot of Marvel DC don't give you that explanation. They
No.
just go, yeah, he just lives long. Or
Yeah, yeah.
he just flies or whatever.
It's just like, it's
Yeah.
this Spider-Man story said it was 1977, and now we're just going to ignore the fact that it said it was
Yeah.
1977.
Yeah,
It's
as
not
Peter
77
goes
anymore.
to university.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, that's the.
And
And
then
school
it-
for how long?
yeah.
What a backwards kid.
Yeah.
I thought he was smart.
Yeah, it's the kind of thing that, I don't know whether it made a lot of people drop off when they did, like, then you got New 52 and then you got Rebirth for DC and stuff like this.
Not exactly, which I dropped off.
Well, the problem is, right, you get a new title, 22 issues, I'm going to change it now, we're going to call it All-Star Batman.
Yeah.
Now we're going to call it, put him back to Detective
Just
Comics.
reboot and you re-up.
With this, I would do,
2008 never reboots.
yeah,
No,
I
never.
love the fact that it doesn't
Never.
reboot. It's just like,
yeah.
if even when you do a new Road Trooper, it's not
Yeah.
the same Road Trooper. It's not saying it's the same
No.
one. It's
No.
rebooting again. This is a different
Yeah,
story.
this guy's Friday, and he's going to be the new
exactly. I
Road.
love
Yeah.
that.
Yeah,
Love
yeah.
that kind of thing. It was just
Yeah.
such a very English way to do it.
Oh, it makes it very clear cut and specific, right?
Yeah.
This is what happened. There's no other.
Judge Dredd appears in 2008 Prog 2,
Yeah.
and it's a story has
Just-
run
it
up
just
to
keeps rolling.
Prog 2000. It's the same
Yeah.
timeline from
And it
beginning to
It
end.
doesn't retcon anything. It doesn't say, it doesn't say, well, we're just going to ignore this story now. All that stuff
Yeah.
happened
Yeah, yeah.
in the world of Dredd,
Yeah.
and they just keep building.
If
on
something's
it.
happened in the past, they
It's
don't try to
set.
change the
No.
past. They have
Yeah.
to write it into
It's-
the now.
Yeah,
And
but
that's
she will
so
never
long.
get away with American comics.
No,
they'd
jeez.
never do it. I mean, I often even wonder. Because we grew up with comics that were like this. Just when I started reading comics, this is what they did. They were anthology comics, even like things like Beano and all that kind of thing.
Yes.
Small stories, 2-3 pages, whatever it might have been. And that was just the form. So you got used to reading, 4 pages this week or 5 pages this week or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
And then recognizing that American comics were different. And I wonder, complete speculation, whether it's possibly why American writers never really, from American comics, came into 2000 AD, because these guys are all writing stories that had a cliffhanger at the end of 4 or 5
Has it ever happened?
pages. Like Michael Fleischer wrote some stuff for 2000 AD in the 90s, I think.
Yeah.
Right.
And he'd done the Spectre and Warlord and for DC and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Because these ones, it's like every story's got a cliffhanger. You've got to write to 4 pages and have a hook at the end of it.
Yeah, yeah.
You can't just write 22 pages. When Eagle collected the Judge trial, that's cool. You just do 22 pages.
Yeah.
There's little cliffhangers right in the middle of it, because that's where the
Yeah,
story
yeah.
ends.
So it's sort of ups and downs and
Ups and downs, exactly.
And
And this is the way that English comics were written, at least sort of
yeah.
at the time. Whereas I don't think, whether maybe anthology comics never took off in any really big way in the States, because they just don't write stories that way.
Yeah.
I think there must be a real art to it. It must be really difficult to write a long form story, even
Like
20 episodes, but you've got to have every 4 or 5 pages hook me.
Yeah,
Give
exactly.
me something for next week.
It's always tying off. You just can't. You can't
just
finish
stop.
on a panel.
And then,
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You have to have that thing which has this dramatic moment.
Yeah.
Bring
So
me
go-
back next week.
Well, go to the end of that there. Call me Kenneth. This is the first prog, sort of the first.
So we're in prog
It's-
10,
so
is
this-
it?
10.
Yeah, prog 10. So this is kind of like I think they sort of judge this as the first sort of a saga, right?
Yeah,
it's not
which is
hugely
why I was
long.
actually going to bring this up. We were just talking about up till prog 10, they were just sort of one-offs, weren't they?
Yeah,
this
that's
is the
right.
first
Yeah.
sort of saga.
Yep.
So on this here, okay, you get a typical Dredd story. It all escalates with a robot called Kenneth who goes a bit mad and wants to overthrow, obviously get rid of humans. But like so, we're talking about cliffhangers. So let's see does this have a cliffhanger at the end? It does. So he's like, okay, it's a full-scale war with the robots.
So pretty much,
yeah.
How many pages? 6 pages? Dredd gets called out to a robot who's just gone mental, which is, and he's finding his programming to behave and look after the humans. He's been a dick, so Dredd comes in. I sentence you to disintegration.
Yep, obviously.
And then he gets killed, old Dreddy. But then at the end of that, it's him just saying it's going to be a full-scale war with the robots.
And so you as a kid, you're going, holy Moses,
man, what's
we
gonna
are going to see
happen now?
robot-human interaction in war.
I got to buy next week.
Yeah, I have to buy.
Yeah.
Mom!
Yeah. I'm
You
not,
know,
waiting,
and
I'm not waiting a month for this. I got 7 days to wait for
Yeah,
the rest
7
of this.
days.
And that's
we are
happened
on
in
it.
1, 2, 3,
Yeah.
4, 5 pages.
5 pages.
Five pages to
Yeah.
sort of get, that's the intro.
Yep.
And then the hook at the end, full-scale war with robots, and then it's just going to be...
Yeah.
And then, so you, Vaughn, as a young whippersnapper, will be going, holy Moses, I'm going to have a little bit of a lay down a cup of tea because that was intense. I'm
Yep.
going to read it again in
And
half an hour.
Half an hour, I'll
Yeah.
be starting right back at the beginning
Yeah.
with Invasion.
Yeah.
And so, but like you say, Brian, right? That's a hook. You've got that.
It's a complete hook.
You've captured that kid's imagination. Oh, what the hell?
And on the cover of that, you've got Dredd being attacked by Call Me Kenneth the robot with a bloody big metal chainsaw sword.
Yeah, exactly.
Just saying the robot's revolt has begun. All humans must die.
So in 77 robots, I mean, they're not a new thing, right? Because you've got Lost in Space and stuff.
Star Wars.
Battlestar Galactica. Oh, was it? I don't know.
Galactica after Star Wars, but even so, you've got Logan's Runs on
Yep,
TV, and
yep.
there's all kinds
So
of
Star
stuff
Wars,
going on.
late 70s.
In 2000 are making full use with
Yeah,
Star
Star
Wars.
Wars.
The only thing
Parade on the
only thing
cover.
they didn't do was drawing the S up with the R. I think is on Star Wars.
Even that logo is
Yeah.
the same. How they didn't get sued for that is amazing.
But they've always played on the edge of that, eh? Like when those band issues in Dredd
Yeah.
with Jolly Good Dry tin
Burger
veggies.
King and Ronald McDonald.
Burger King, Ronald McDonald, those sorts of things.
All those things. Yep.
Yeah, you know that's kind of another interesting thing about it.
I love the fact that they did
American
that without
comics
even
would never
thinking
do
about that they would get sued. It was just like, we just wrote a story.
Yeah, and American comics would never do that.
No.
They'd be too scared of being fined,
Completely.
sued, whatever you call it.
Absolutely.
And the artist would be, oh, you're out of here, so you're gone if you ever even attempt to do that stuff again.
Yeah, you'll never get past it.
And they just did it like, oh, we didn't think it'd be a problem.
Of course it wouldn't. It was just telling a story in the middle of this science fiction story. What's your problem?
And that's kind of another thing I like about it, right? A lot of this band, the CCA, right? Comics Code Authority.
Yep.
They came in. I think it was in the 60s when they did that. I can't remember off the top of my head.
Late 50s, I think.
Yeah. So And that's probably why Mad Magazine kept their format. Not that I'm a big fan of Mad Magazine, but they kept their format that way, so they weren't a comic, they were a magazine. They could do whatever they liked.
Did pretty well.
Parody and
Parody.
stuff. Yeah.
Satire.
And maybe, I mean, these guys probably didn't care that much, to be honest with you. But they did things that you just wouldn't have got away with in America, right?
In hindsight, 2000 AD was
and don't get me wrong,
probably obvious to a lot of people at the time, but for me it was, it's full of satire. When they go through Robot Hunter and they do they have the year of singing and there's all these songs and they're taking the mickey out of Margaret Thatcher. It's the World Cup one and stuff. And this one's full of satire. I never got it when I was a kid.
They assassinate Margaret Thatcher
fun stuff.
An invasion, right? They take the front steps of the Parliament House and just shoot it.
Precisely. And they're going, oh, why have you got a problem with this?
Hey, what's the issue? Hey. No, it's I mean, we could talk forever about Dredd, but the next thing I want to go into is there's so much awesome merch with Dredd. Like, just even the badges. I see the guys with their badges on there, and they're like, got their name printed on. I'm like, these are awesome.
Oh, the actual judge badge.
They're insanely good.
Yeah.
The Lawgivers are Mark 3, Mark 2.
Never was then. Not for us anyway.
I can't remember what that
2000 AD was a pretty underground comic. It's in New Zealand.
Yeah.
It wasn't that well known.
It was never massive, no. Everybody it was all X-Men and Spider-Man and all of that stuff.
It was an English comic that,
Yep.
I know that from where Warren and I lived in Torbay, the stationery there, I don't even remember ever seeing really a Marvel comic in there myself. Okay. It was always Wizard and Chips, Beano, 2000 AD, Commando. They were kind of real. Phantom was the Federal reprints. Right, they were quite big, but I never saw Marvel. The only time I ever seen it was at Whitcoulls when I was quite young. They had X-Men, and that's probably the only title they had.
Yep.
Our store seemed pretty English orientated. With the comics.
It was a pretty classic stationery store, really.
Might even have been cheaper to bring in, maybe. I don't know.
Possibly. They probably just had
an
account right from the same company, whatever they were called at the time, and just pumped it out and just like
pretty well.
Tick them off what you wanted it to done. And that's all.
Funny thing is, it was coming in weekly. We were 3 months behind, but it was coming in weekly. It was
consistent completely.
Yeah, which is that's an effort in itself, isn't it?
Yeah,
get a bloody weekly comic in.
Yeah, and to not missing it was pretty impressive.
Let's go back to the stuff. Is it Planet Replica that do like the Lawgivers?
Yeah.
So I saw that. Is it a Mark III Lawgiver, the Colourless Squirrel? I saw someone who ordered one of those, and it was online. And it was insanely good.
Oh, nice.
It'd be just a nice piece to have in your office or in your comics room or something like this. Even just get one of the badges, mate, and like have that. What else did they have? Guys have made helmets. I've seen a guy at Armageddon. He'd made his own suit or got parts in from England and then made the rest of the suit himself, and it was insanely good. Like the helmet didn't fit quite right, but the visor was perfect.
Did he buy the helmet in?
I think he got 3D printed or something like this. He was telling me that someone made it for him, but whether he 3D printed, whatever he done with it, I don't know how good they are. But it was good. It was really good. Like, and if you want like a lot of cosplay, and you don't see a lot of Dredd cosplay. I've only really seen Dredd or Anderson.
Yeah,
And there's a cosplayer in New Zealand, Sophia Station. She's done a shoot with, I think it's Matt Barnes, and she was Anderson, and the suit was excellent. Like it was, I mean, it's a modernised style of it, but it was pretty damn good. And even the Dredd you see around a lot of stuff now, because of 3D printing and everything else, they can come up with.
Go and print your
own. That guy, he actually had his day stick. He actually had the Lawgiver. Oh, wow. He actually had a boot knife. Like all these things. Whether they were replicas or whatever they were printed on there. Whatever they were pretty awesome.
That's amazing.
But the merch, even the statues you can get now, I mean, some of them are mega expensive and that, but I'll tell you what, the make quality of it is so much better than any other comics group that I know of. Obviously not under license, but mind you, saying that, I've seen some of the toy sets, the action figures and stuff that come out, and they were freaking hideous. Like the lime green they used for his new like day glow. I was like, what the hell? Okay. I'm keen to get it because I'm keen to just have it as a piece. But I want it as pack. But
paint it.
Oh man, you'd want to repaint them, but it would just kill the authenticity of it. But a lot of the ones I've watched on YouTube, guys unboxing statues and stuff like that, then the reason that they use is so good. Like it's amazing. Just a bit out of my price range though, because it's like leaking up to that $1,000 mark, some of it, and over. I've even seen that video posted ages ago. That statue was massive. By the way, it stood over half a metre. It was pretty impressive. But
a Dredd.
Yeah. Wow. They do another good one that's not unreachable, and the red cloak. That red cloak has a wire in it.
That I love that one.
Yeah,
I'm not a massive sculpture collector or anything like that. I wouldn't do it, but that Judge Dredd figure with the posable hands, you can swap out guns and stuff, and then he's got a rad cloak.
Yeah.
Oh.
And you can actually post a
post
rad
the rad
cloak.
cloak.
Yeah, it looks awesome. It really does. That to me is
quality,
and it's not. That isn't actually ridiculous price. I think between 100, 150.
Yeah, well, even that one,
which is okay.
Bad,
even the one I picked up from Arkham Comics. You know, it was only just over $100, but it's resin. It's got all the different lawgivers. So it says it's got Mark 1, 2, 3, or Mark 1, 2, and 2 something. Oh,
you swap out the whole hand holding it.
Swap the whole hand out.
I see, right.
So it comes with 3 sets of hands.
Yeah.
And it's not magnetic, but it's a firm. Like when you put it on, it sits on really well. And it's a Mick McMahon style, so it's got super skinny ankles, massive toes on its boots, massive. And it's actually painted up pretty well for something $100 and something bucks. I mean, it's not the best, but it's a pretty high quality. I thought.
I liked it.
The box that it came with was actually even more impressive. You know, it was. It's
fully.
it looks like a prog. Stretched right around the outside of it. It's insane. Good.
The only thing that I found weird on that, because I loved everything, I love the skinny legs, I like the big pads and everything like that, but it's got a really unusual eagle on its shoulder.
Oh, okay, it doesn't stand out as much as the thing I didn't.
What were you going to like?
His skin tone. I hate it.
It's quite orange, eh?
Oh, orangey pink, it's horrendous. Looks like Donald Trump, Trump man.
Tan Dredd. Wow.
Yeah, it really is.
The Real Housewives of Mega City.
It almost looks like they have tried to replicate from the prog, you know, like the colouring like that. Yeah. It's kind of it's almost like a weird printed kind of colour.
You can almost forgive it because of the price itself, but I'd like to get a real nice piece, but luckily I think it's become more and more. It's easier and easier to get with the internet, right? Because you can order stuff now. Like I'd hate to think what it would be like if you wanted something cool in the 80s, because.
Well,
I remember growing up in the 80s.
If you could get it though.
Well, let's put this in the 80s. You'd get G.I. Joe, right? Which I used to get a lot of as a kid. And we're like, okay, I've got to get this many, and I get the barcodes. I send away, and I'll get this awesome thing. When you got the awesome thing, you're like, this is a big piece of dog turd. This is horrible. Yeah. Like his windsurfer. I don't remember that one. There was a windsurfer, the G.I. Joes you sent away. And you give it, you go, oh, this is just.
I cut out about 10 barcodes.
Sent
it away. I waited
8 weeks.
Oh, it was longer than that.
Man.
It was ridiculous. And when you're a kid, each week is like a year.
Torture.
You know, it's absolute torture. And then when it came, it was just a big pile of shit. Just, why am I going to put this action figure on a windsurfer?
Yeah.
With a gun on the side of it?
Because that's how you fight. That's a wolf.
Of course.
Windsurfer.
I don't want a PT boat. I need a windsurfer. Yeah.
Right, you go round there and take your windsurfer. There's no water. Sucker. See you later.
There's no breeze.
Whole
mission's off.
Yeah. Oh, God.
It was. I mean, it's a great time to be a collector, obviously, because you can actually genuinely get something. I remember, you'd be reading the progs in the 80s, and the ads for Forbidden Planet would be in them.
Oh,
and all these things that you could get if you were in England. Couldn't get them here. There's no way you'd get anything in. There was T-shirts, and then some. Even really early figures would be nothing like the quality of what you'd get now. But even so, you'd go, that's Dredd. There was a Judge Death one, I remember.
Yeah.
A figure or a statue or whatever. Thinking, I really want that. Mum would probably have kittens over it, but
or occasionally you'd come across a thing and just saying, some original art for 20 quid. Just go, what the hell? I didn't even know that was a thing.
Someone's selling back issues. Prog one for how much? Oh,
yeah, exactly.
Oh, God.
Oh, it was, that Forbidden Planet used to be a killer, those ads, because it was so tempting and it was so out of our reach.
Completely out of reach.
You said to me when you saw the ads for Forbidden Planet as a kid, you're like, when I get older, all I want to do is go to Forbidden Planet. I just have to go there.
As a kid, that was just like my little utopia. That's where I wanted to go. I just said it's just such a mythical place in my mind from reading it in 2000 AD.
Well, especially as a kid, you'd never ever visit a shop that specifically just sold a comic or any type of memorabilia.
No.
And you're going to the local stationers where there's just a bunch of nudie mags on the top, some women's mags, some gardening crap, and at the bottom you've got Wizard and Chips, Beano, 2008 Commando.
Yeah, a quick look in the page 3 girl, tips out, and then straight to 2000 AD.
And then get what you came for, and then on your BMX and race home.
Fish and chips for tea. A-team on TV.
Mum said they forgot bread, gotta go back up the road. Yeah, for you guys, that's a fond memory for Dredd, right? You know you're going to pick up a prog. I didn't quite have that because I had Oink magazine, obviously, and Beano and stuff.
Yeah, we didn't really like your kind.
Yeah.
You're doing a podcast on the Oink, though, right? You want a fully Oink dedicated podcast.
Yeah.
It's got
Well, it'll be a solo effort.
Don't worry, Dredd was actually in Oink.
It was a Judge Oink.
Yeah,
I had
Judge
that.
Oink.
Yeah.
Oh, Lord. It's like Spider-Ham.
Yeah,
Oh,
Peter Porker.
don't even start it.
Peter Porker.
Oh, Peter Porker. Oh, God.
I had a whole set of the Oinks.
You're the man. I didn't have a full set. I had random ones again.
I'd like to point out that you two were judging me earlier. Judging.
Walter.
For Walter the Wobot, thank you. I'm just going to put Oink on the table now. And,
Oh, dear God.
That's straight up
your
there.
move.
Yeah, I know.
I threw mine on the rubbish, so...
Okay. If we're then going to descend further into 2018 and you tell me you liked Big Dave, then we're going to have a real
No.
I haven't actually read Big Dave.
I haven't read it, so
Oh,
I
never
don't know.
seen it.
Oh, there's a treat in store for you.
The art looked
Yes,
It's got
okay.
all the sarcasm I can muster.
Is it really that bad? Because I've
very-
seen a lot of people really poo-pooing it hard.
Really?
There is-
I've never even
yeah.
heard of Big Dave, so that's
It's,
me as a picture.
It's
Story
quite
of-
a quite a
story of
well-known...
its time. Put it
Oh,
that way.
yeah.
It's a story of its time.
I heard it was very loaded, kind of laddish.
Very,
So
very
they-
much so. The writers were trying to make a point and not doing it. It's
Yeah.
about as subtle as a brick, really. So,
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
That's but just based on the pictures I've seen it, it always looks kind of interesting. Like the art
the
looks
art's
okay.
The art's really it's fun art, I suppose.
It's just the
and
story
kinda
is
tells-
just-
Yeah, I think you could probably look at the art without reading even the dialogue, and you'd figure out what's going on. It's
Yeah.
pretty clear what they're about.
It gets
So,
universally panned, eh?
anyway,
Pretty.
and for mine, rightly so. But anyway, we still have Dredd. I'm good.
Yeah.
I honestly, I could talk this length of time on every single story that was in 2000 AD. It's
You and me both.
there's so much
Let's
that
do
we
that.
haven't even been able to do, like Strontium Dog,
Yeah.
Gotta do Rogue.
Rogue Trooper,
Not Roadbusters, what do they call them?
Robo Hunter. There's
Zenith. I mean,
Yeah.
ABC Warriors.
Yeah. ABC Warriors.
that's what I meant to say.
Yeah.
Bram read DR and Quinch for the first time the other day. I loved it.
I love Dear Own Quinch.
Guess who hates it?
Do you know what I do think sounds awesome though? Ace
Big
Trucking.
Dave.
Ace Trucking. Big Dave. No, Ace Trucking. I've only heard it on podcasts, and that sounds because I like the. I've seen GBH,
Yeah.
and he looks awesome.
Ace Tracking is
Huge
funny.
ghostly.
I
monster
like
man.
the early ones. It got a bit bland to me
Yeah,
once it
agreed.
sort of ran out of. It sort of became a bit of a bit overdone.
Early on, it's at its best.
Nemesis,
Yeah.
I
thought the same
think-
as Zenith, to be honest.
I think Nemesis became better over the years.
Yes. Yeah.
It started pretty average and got
Completely.
better and better every year. Zenith, well, I didn't actually read the full run of Zenith. So I really enjoyed the first phase. I've read the second phase, it was okay.
Yeah.
I haven't the third phase.
Yeah.
Ran out of
First,
steam,
second
you
for mine,
reckon?
first phase is definitely the best one of them.
Yeah.
It's cool to read it as a self-contained story.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think the first phase is the best of it. I'm looking at a picture on the cover of the book you're holding, Thrill Power Overload, Halo Jones.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Halo Jones. I love that.
Book
It's
three.
still, outside of Dredd, still
Yeah.
my favourite ever 2000 AD story.
I loved that.
Gutted that it never got finished.
Yeah.
And funny, as I was quite young reading Halo Jones, and I loved it. I was so amazed by it. And yet it's not really a classic sort of boys story in a
No,
way.
not
It's
at
a
all.
very unusual
No.
kind of story, and I loved it.
Yeah, I was just
Bad
blown away by
Company,
it.
which is a boys story, just straight into a
Yeah,
war and stuff.
completely.
But I love it. I reckon it's good.
Yeah, it's like Fiends of the Eastern Front and all that kind of thing. There's all these
Yeah.
very much boys' stories at that point.
Yeah, Fiends
For
in the
sure.
front. That another one I heard on
VCs and stuff, and-
a podcast, and I was like, that is actually pretty awesome. And because they actually swap sides, right? They're allies with the Germans, I think, at the first, and they flop over to the other side,
Turns
right?
through and yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
an excellent concept. Like I just don't even know how you. I mean, I don't have the imagination. for
Vampires
that
in the
concept.
War.
Yeah,
Let's write one
Yeah.
of those. Let's
Yeah.
get like 10 episodes out of that.
And that's a good
That's
thing.
only
Yeah.
good.
There we go. It was
So
just-
many good characters.
2008 was full of that. It was just
Oh.
like, they just kept throwing
how
ideas in
good?
there. It was
How
so
good's Helltrick is though? We've all read Helltrick,
Helltrick.
and
Oh.
everyone said you have to read this, and it's.
It's a story
weird
that
in
never
its
gets
concept.
mentioned. It's such an underrated
Oh,
story, Helltrick.
Yeah, and I was impressed to see that it was included in that Judge Dredd Mega Collection
Yeah.
because it's. I don't know if it's ever been reprinted before.
I don't think so. Not that
I've
I'm
never
aware
come
of
across
anyway.
it outside
Whether
of the
they did
progs.
Best
Yeah.
of 2000 AD monthly when they were doing the black and white
Ah,
reprints.
yeah,
Whether they
maybe,
I
yeah.
don't know. I never saw it myself.
Yeah.
But I'm
Funny
not
enough,
sure.
Bram got given some of those today. The
Those
best
were great.
those monthlies. I actually, when I stopped doing the prog, I started doing the monthlies.
Yep.
Because it was full stories and I was really enjoying, and there was a good way to sort of just keep going and having the full story. And then after that, which I've sort of gone more for the paperbacks, the trades and things, and also that Judge Dredd collection. You get the 2000 AD Ultimate Collection.
I do, yeah.
And you get that sent from Forbidden Planet.
That's from Forbidden Planet, yeah. So I've been getting those.
Yeah. And that's
stacking those up, coming every 2 weeks.
That's the full 2000, a range of different 2000 AD stories rather than just
right across
Judge Dredd.
the whole span. Some really early stuff, some really current stuff. So there's a whole chunk of it I've never read, which is great.
Yeah,
all
cool.
of Nikolai Dante's I've never read at all.
Yeah.
Deep into Slain, there's like eight or nine, I think, volumes of Slain.
Oh, Slain. We didn't even mention
Didn't
Slain.
touch on Slain.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a cool series to pick up, and even those you can dip into, as you say, even if you didn't get the whole lot. Find the ones you wanted. There's a Halo Jones.
Yeah.
I need Meltdown Man. There's all these great self-contained stories which I've never read collected.
Yeah.
You read them weekly. Yeah, so those things like that and the Mega Collection are a great way to pick them up.
Or even reading Vaughan put me onto the Daily Dreads. That's an awesome fun read.
Yeah.
Oh man.
And they're complete little stories, right?
Yeah.
And
they do Apocalypse War in about 8 bloody panels.
I know.
It's a 6-month story that jam into one
Bam.
six panel sort of story, 6 to 8 panel story, and it's awesome. It's really good.
Like
Ron Smith is fucking amazing. He does
Churning
such
it
a
out.
good job of doing those.
If you're not in for the long con and you like your footroots flat style stuff, like that's just a comparison. But that Daily Dreads is honestly, you can blow through it, but you don't get bored of that. You can read it. Go, every single story is insanely good.
That's an art in itself to be able to tell a story in 3-4 panels. It's just like how you do it.
That's a skill, man.
Hats off.
And you get to see so many different characters spread out all along there. The bloody League of Fatties are always brilliant in those things. Yeah, so good.
Well, even now you can see why someone like these agents from Vertigo and stuff go to England, right, and poach, because they're like, this dudes can knock out a story in a week. Granted, it's 6 pages, but you imagine how much wicked stuff they put out over 22 pages in a month. Because and you're getting people who can do a 6-panel story, or how many panels in the Daily Dreads, and go, these guys have got talent. They've been hard pressed on their time and their talent, and they can smash out stuff that's that good. We need these guys. I know Pat Mills flips out, but when you've only been paid peanuts for so long, and someone's coming to go, hey, this is you can make a living out of this, a proper living, and you can come back and buy a house or do something.
Of course you would, wouldn't you?
Was it Brian Bolland, and he was talking, I don't know if it was Brian Bolland was talking, and he was saying, and when we went to America, I said, I always wanted to see a fire hydrant or the water towers and stuff, and he said, and when I got to draw them into stuff, because I'd seen them in Spider-Man, you're like, you got that passion to go and draw a book, when he's already been drawing comics for God knows how long.
It might have even been Gibbons, actually.
Was it? Yeah,
and so one of those guys, wasn't it?
You get the free range to basically, you're the new guy, and you've got, hey, this is a story I want you to do.
Just let you loose.
Yeah, draw whatever you like. Just
it's another whole story, isn't it? Another whole story about who's progressed from 2000 AD to American comics.
That's a list as long as your arm of people like that too. Alan Moore, here's Swamp Thing. What do you want to do with that?
It's always it flops.
Just go.
And then you put him in it, and you add John Constantine, and you make this incredible thing. People like and
turn it on its head and it just takes off.
It's massively. That was massively collected.
New thinking, and no wonder they went looking for them. No wonder they poached them in. And from the money point of view, you can see the stories that you hear. No wonder they did it, because you're getting paid. I mean, even what your talent's worth.
The guy as good as John Wagner's going to there when he could have just stayed, probably made a good living even in England.
Yeah.
But you want to change the pace, right? You want to, let's just give this a go. And he does it, and he did it really well there. Even Neil Gaiman, Grant Morrison, and all these other
Mark
people.
Miller, and there's so many people. Garth Ennis,
Peter Milligan.
All
these guys.
It just goes on and on.
So there's a list, such a long list of people.
Yeah, it's insane.
Why not?
You can't. But it always. When I watch that Future Shocks and I see Pat Mills get so animated about, they did left and they could have stayed here and blah blah blah.
Yeah, you could have gone too.
Yeah, it's good to be patriotic, but when you've got, say, a family and you need to pay bills.
But also, if that was the case, you wouldn't have seen hardly any of these guys come through, because it would have been full. There would have been enough people doing the stories, art-wise and writing-wise. Without other people shifting and moving on, we wouldn't have the new talent. We wouldn't have had Mark Miller coming through. And then they do need, and it was good for him to use 2000 AD to go to America.
Yeah.
And then that frees up a new space for another guy to come in and do it.
like
You can't hold on to these guys forever.
That's how you get Henry Flint and you get Disraeli and you
Yeah.
get all these guys.
Yeah,
because
yeah.
there's a space for them to move into because
Yeah.
someone else has moved on, and that's how life works.
Well,
Exactly.
It's like the All-Star Batman Rebirth, and I wasn't a massive fan of the story, but I was showing Vaughan the covers, and these covers are good, man. I really like them. They're just good artwork, and it's Jock, and I'm like,
Yeah.
He did a heap of covers in a row. I've got one. I got it slabbed number 1 because it's Batman in quite a, not black and white, but he's just bloody all down his face, all across his chest, and Jock's done that cover, and I think he did one through to. Could have been into the late teens. He did all the covers,
Wow.
and there's quite a cool one with the American flag dragged over his shoulder, all ripped up,
Brilliant.
and they're just amazing covers. And I never even knew he'd worked on 2000 AD, but obviously he did.
Mm-hmm.
But like he doesn't like that amazing artwork.
You talking about Jock, was that?
Yeah, it just blows your mind.
Jock did
Like,
good stories in
I've seen him drawing
Judge
Dredd even on certain YouTube videos, and like he does a lot of his shading has actual squares. He does squares in black and whites,
Right.
and
Okay.
they come out just amazingly good. And like you say, they wouldn't have never come through. Like in Simon Bisley, like his hand painted like Slaying the Horned God. The art in that I've read it out of order, but I read that one first because I like the artwork, and I didn't understand a lot of it, but the artwork keeps you in it.
Simon Bisley,
so
when
good.
he came and started doing, was it ABC Warriors?
Yeah, he did an ABC Warriors run. Yeah,
Was it
Bisley
ABC
did. I'm
Warriors?
sure Bisley did.
I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, ABC Warriors. Yeah, and when
Definitely so.
he was the first artist I actually kind of noticed, if you know what I mean. Like,
Yeah.
I always read it and just went, "Oh, I
Yeah.
like this style, I like this." Okay, and then, but once I saw him turn up on the prog in ABC Warriors, I really kind of noticed him and started to recognise him a lot more. And again, he's massive in the comic
Because
world.
I don't know which way around he went. Whether he went, did he go heavy metal first and then 2000 or 2000 AD heavy metal? I don't know. But he worked on heavy metal.
I think 2000 AD would be one of his first.
The first
things.
gigs. Yeah.
I think so. I didn't actually know he was in heavy metal.
I think he did. He's done covers for them and stuff like that. I don't know
Okay.
if he's done stories. I don't know, but I know he's done covers and stuff. And even that Judgment on Gotham, and he did the Batman Dredd crossover. That's one of my favourite stories, and I'd never read it. And Vaughan just gave it to me one day. I'll read that. There's some stuff to read. And I read it. And I was
Alan
like,
Grant writing
so
both,
good.
just brilliant.
Like
Yeah,
punches Dredd in
yeah.
the face. Dredd smashes him with a day stick and stuff. Like it's just like really super.
Two guys that
violent,
just
like
aren't
you
going to
want.
move. Just brilliant.
No.
Such a brilliant idea.
Such strong wills.
Yeah.
And you've got Judge Death. He goes through into Gotham, right?
Yeah.
Got to bring him back, and it's just a really.
That's the thing.
Insane
We
art,
could
insane
talk
story.
another hour
Oh,
because
no,
honestly, you've got Judge Dredd and Batman together.
Yeah,
You got
Well, you even got Dredd vs Alien, Predator, Dredd vs
you got Strontium Dog and Dredd.
Dredd
Yes.
vs Martial
You know?
Law. Is it Dredd vs Martial Law as well? I think that's
Okay,
is that a
yeah.
crossover? I can't remember. Just too many. And that's why we had to sort of keep it to Dredd, right? Because you can start to go into this universe, and go so far out.
Could be hours. It just
And you get crossovers over to that. You get Invasion with Roadbusters of Hammerstein turn up. And,
It all becomes one
Invasion,
story, doesn't it?
together.
and it's that whole robots, and they start killing everybody, even in churches and everything. It gets super violent, like which is what I'm quite into. I like the super violence,
Yeah, I do too.
elbowing kids in the face because they sneak up on you. So don't sneak up on the
They just
judge.
sneak up on the judge.
Unless you want to pay for them dentistry.
Yeah. Okay, so once again, thanks Brian for coming in. Thanks for chipping in, Vaughan, because I know you're passionate about it too. And I've had a good time doing it.
Yeah, I've really enjoyed it. It's been a really good talk.
Yeah.
Thanks, Brian.
Completely. Thanks so
Good
much.
to see you.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Cheers, boys. And signing off for Whitianga Comics, and that's our Dredd/2000 AD podcast. And we'll catch up for the next episode in a couple of weeks. Thank you very much. Thanks for listening.